Okay, we are just going to test this out. I don't even know if I'm going to end up using this, but I'm going to test this out to see if this is a good way to record my new podcast. So, welcome to the Oh My Gosh, You're Glowing podcast. I am your host, Lindsey Walker, intuitive root cause health coach. And I am so excited to be able to just start having these conversations that have been sitting in my head for far too long and instead actually share them with you all. Now, there is a backstory behind why I am calling this the Oh My Gosh, You're Glowing podcast. So it's super important for you to know because you can start to feel the vibe of where this has been birthed from, really. Now, I am all about clearing out your physical vessel, detoxing your body, and really living in alignment with your soul. So, we do energy work, I do root cause detoxing, we do intuitive readings and healings to really bring in your soul's essence and so that you can actually listen to your intuition even more. So, I truly believe that full healing is possible. And that is really what I help people with. That's what I teach you. And that is what I am all about. Now, when I identified with, I guess, being chronically ill and having all of these health challenges, I didn't feel well. My skin looked dull. Just as a person, I was not a very vibrant person. And once I started to go through all of these healing modalities and really heal myself through all of the things that we're going to talk about, I got started to get people say, like, I would jump on a Zoom call or jump on a call and they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, you're glowing." Like, I started to get this reflection, this feedback from people when I actually started becoming my true authentic self. And so the vibe of this podcast is like, what can you do to internally heal yourself, to give yourself that internal glow up? That's gonna make people say, "Oh my gosh, you're glowing." Because you know when you have that glow from the inside out, it's different. It is a different glow. It is a different look. You look vibrant. You feel vibrant. In your body, there is a different knowing and feeling than if you were just kind of like running your mundane life. When you are truly lit up and excited about life, you have this internal glow that you cannot not see. Everyone sees it. Everyone sees that you are glowing from the inside out. So, this podcast is all about talking about what are the ways that we can truly transform your inner world so that your reflection from everyone else is, oh my gosh, you're glowing. So, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited for all of these conversations. This is just going to be like a really raw, let's see, high quality raw because I'm all about high quality. I'm a Taurus moon. I love for things to just look good, feel good, sound good. But this is going to be real and raw. Like, I'm just going to sit down with my mic and record, and whatever comes out and whatever wisdom and teachings and learnings and channeling needs to come through, that is what is coming through in this podcast. So, as I'm just vibing, okay, this was supposed to be like a test recording, like a test audio, but now I kind of feel like I just should roll with this. So, I feel like this is totally the vibe of the podcast. I wanted to introduce what it is all about, and here we are. So, I'm really running with this stop planning, stop trying to make everything this like perfectionism, perfect little square bubble that you have like refined 50 times and just doing the damn thing. So, I don't know. We're just going to roll with this. Maybe this will be my first podcast episode. So, if you're listening to this, this was unplanned. This was supposed to be a test audio, but I'm going to roll with it and see what we got. So, the first thing that I really want to start with is talking about how the heck I got here. And there is a backstory to how I became a spiritual entrepreneur, the reason I built my business, the reason I'm even here today, having the desire to have a podcast is because of my past experiences and all the challenges I've had with my health. And that's what I help people with today. I help people heal their health challenges. And you will find out as I tell you all more and teach you all more and share more of my experiences. It's not just about health. That's just where I see, that's the lens that I enter through to really help people heal themselves, have this inner self development. And that's the work that I do. Now, This all started from my own health challenges that started back in, I think it was around 2016 or so. Now, I will say, so I graduated college in 2016. I will say, I feel like my college years really amped up the future health challenges that I ended up having. So I suppose they probably started a little bit more, even in like 2013, 2014 or so. But I swear it was like the purpose of my college years was just to, I don't know, set me up for this sole lesson of having all of these health challenges come through that I ended up having to deal with. Because my perspective on health challenges is that they are the path to your soul's purpose. Now, that doesn't mean you just sit there and say, okay, I am just supposed to, this is my purpose. So I'm just going to sit here and like hope to be healed. No, no. That means it's supposed to take you on this path of healing, of these lessons. And so you're meant to lean further and deeper into these health challenges while still learning on this path, but not just sitting like a couch potato and waiting for this miraculous healing to happen while you're doing absolutely nothing. It's meant to take you deeper into an experience that you haven't had before. So my college years really set up like this like total breakdown of my body because I have always seen myself as a healthy person. Like truly, I think that mindset has actually really served me. It wasn't always necessarily true, but I think it was actually helpful. I always saw myself as a healthy person. I always worked out a lot. I played sports. I played volleyball, softball when I was younger. I started doing a lot of high intensity workout in college because I wanted to feel better about myself. When you're like running around college and drinking a ton of alcohol and eating wraps at the dining hall for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, you end up needing to like move a little bit. I really thought that walking to my classes from my dorm was exercise. And I quickly realized that that wasn't happening because the Freshman 15 was totally real. And my brother totally called me out my first Thanksgiving home freshman year. He was like, wow, you're like really fat. I was like, thank you. That's so nice of you. If you have a younger brother, I feel like you just know what I'm talking about. I'm sure he had. There was some heart in there. I needed to be called out. Anyways, my college experience, I had the full college experience. Let me tell you, I did all the things. And so much so that I really don't drink alcohol anymore. And it doesn't even like, it's not a desire to me anymore. But let me tell you, it's not like I haven't lived. I lived. I lived a little too much. My going out and drinking experiences in college were like literally Monday through Sunday. Yeah, I went to Arizona State University. So, it was part of the experience. It was like my soul was like, let's send her here. She'll have all these wild experiences. She'll never want to do them again. And it's going to set her up for this like wild health issue. And then she's going to go find her purpose. I don't know. I mean, I think that's like what it was, right? That's what it feels like it was. So after college, I graduated and was actually super excited because I landed, I don't know if it was my dream job, but it was my dream company to work for. And at the time, it just like felt like I had made it. I was super excited. The one thing that was kind of a challenge for me was it required me to move away from home. So I'm from Arizona, that's where I grew up, and it required me to move to San Antonio, Texas, which at the time I wasn't thrilled about. I was more excited about the company than I was the location, but I kind of had this thought of like, oh, I'm going to come back to Phoenix or Arizona. Like that was kind of always in the back of my mind. I didn't think I was going to stay there, but like spoiler alert, it's been 8 years. I'm still here. Well, obviously I didn't go anywhere, which is fine. Life ended up having different plans for me than 22-year-old Lindsey did, which is great. And I moved here, but it was that summer where I really started having a lot of health issues. And the biggest health challenges that I had were breathing issues. It was a lot of digestive, lack of energy, things like that. But the breathing issues was the heaviest thing for me. That was the most challenging thing for me to deal with. And at the time, I was also dating someone that truly was quite a toxic relationship. At the time, I was in total denial, but it was very toxic. And so that summer is when I started to have a lot of these issues, specifically the breathing problems. And the funny part was I was actually moving closer to this person. And it was almost like my body was like revolting against this person. And, he was a big portion of my story of like me having to come back into my power and really come back to myself and realizing how many red flags were there that I was ignoring. So that's maybe a story for another day, but that was definitely part of it. And that was what was going on during the move, during me transitioning from college to going into the corporate world. I was showing up as a new software developer. I was in IT for 7 years, and I also felt like a total fraud because I was hired to be a software developer in 2016. And I felt like I did not actually have the skill set for that job. Now, that's what I went to school for, but I had told them like I just wanted to be a project manager or what's called a scrum master. And I was like, I do not want to be a developer. So if that's what you're hiring for, don't hire me. I literally told them that in an interview. And somehow I got hired as a software developer. It was kind of crazy. I thought they were going to fire me on day one. So here I am showing up for this job where I think I'm going to get fired. I'm like terrified. I just moved into this new apartment, bought thousands of dollars worth of furniture. And I'm like, hopefully they don't fire me on day one because I literally feel like I have no idea what I'm doing. So this is how I show up to this new job. And as I am finding my footing, finding my place in this new job, in this new life, creating this new space for myself, I also find a gym to become a part of. At the time, I was really into CrossFit, and it was super important for me to find a gym here, for me to find some friends, make some friends, and just like find that place. Like for me at the time, and still movement and working out is like a way for me to like release energy and just let go. But especially at that time, it was really a space for me to just unwind and let go of everything from the day. So that was really important to me. Spoiler alert, I ended up meeting my now husband at that gym. So it was like my soul was telling me how important it was to go find this place. And I actually ended up choosing the one. This was like one of these like really early lessons in choosing what just felt aligned and not cheaper or like less expensive, because I actually chose, there was like two gyms literally down the street from each other. One was giving me a bigger discount for the place that I worked at, for where I had a job at. And the other one just felt better in my body. Like it just felt more alive and aligned and exciting. And I liked the people there more, but it was more expensive. And that was like the first lesson for me, to pick something that felt more alive and aligned in my body than picking something based off of the monetary value that I was going to have to pay. And I actually met him like probably right after I purchased my membership. My now husband, I was dating someone else at the time, but he was one of my first friends at the gym. And it was like an immediate connection. I just like knew that there was something there, and I pushed it off mentally because I was like, oh, I'm not like allowed to, be attracted to someone else right now. But there was something in my body and my soul. And now looking back, there was so much I was being led to in those decisions, in like making that gym be such an important part of my journey here. I just knew I had to find that. And he actually ended up working at the same company I did. So there's just like a lot of alignment. We ended up becoming friends first. And then, I became single, and then we like literally dated the next week. So there was just a lot of alignment that now, as I'm reflecting on it and looking back, there was so much I was being guided towards and led towards, even though at the time it was like very uncomfortable for me. So as all this is going on, it's like my health challenges start to like ramp up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. And like I had said, the breathing issues were like the real big struggle for me at the beginning, to the point where I had had like some digestive issues, especially in college. And I started, blaming the gluten and the dairy, and like those started to fall off my diet. And it certainly helped a little bit, because obviously, if you're removing some inflammation that is creating stress for your body, it's going to support you in some way. But and we'll talk about this in another episode later on, but ultimately, that wasn't the reason that these things were coming up. Those elimination diets really just did support me and help me at the time. So, yes, there was digestive issues that I had experienced, but then this whole breathing thing was a whole new animal. And for a while, I actually attached it to and blamed it to this experience that I had on an airplane where they were like spraying all these chemicals. And My mom had a really, like, bad experience too. It was, like, going up to Alaska, they were, like, spraying all these chemicals. I forget what it was for. I think there was, like, the Zika virus was, like, really bad at that time, and they had just, like, sprayed the airplane, and, like, after that, like, she had this really visceral reaction, and, like, really, I think for me, it was more emotional because I was fearful of, like, really, I had this, like, mental subconscious thought of, like, losing her because she couldn't breathe, and, like, I was scared for what was gonna happen to her. And then somehow that translated to me later on having these breathing issues. So there was definitely an emotional component to it from an experience that I watched her have, but then later on they just kept exacerbating. So what frustrated me was that a lot of people tried to put on to me that it was like I created this issue, like it's my fault. And obviously, to a point, like there was an emotional anxiety that I had created around the stress that I had felt in my lungs, but that's not the original creation of it. There was definitely a lot going on in my lungs. There was a lot of like root causes I had to detox, some mold, some bacteria, some heavy metals, some other things that were really irritating my lungs from a physical standpoint. And then it's like, well, when you can't breathe, you start to obviously pile some anxiety and some other like emotional baggage and energy like on top. And think about like your chest is where your heart chakra is. So there was like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer going on in the same spot. And so I remember like being at the office, I was still in training for this IT job, and I would be like leaning over chairs trying to like put pressure on my chest to be able to breathe. I would send myself to urgent care at the end of a work day instead of going to the gym because I didn't feel well. I had x-rays, I had MRIs, I had an asthma test that I failed the like test, like the baseline test, the stuff that no one's supposed to fail. I like quote unquote failed that, and really, it was because they were shoving chemicals down your lungs. Like, what do you think is gonna happen? So, there were so many experiences that I had. It was like I kept trying to go these normal routes, these quote unquote normal routes of this is how you take care of your body. You go to urgent care, you go to a regular doctor, you go see these asthma specialists. And, they misdiagnosed me with asthma and then gave me a medication that had dairy in it, which exacerbated the stress in my lungs already. So that was my attempt to go down the allopathic traditional route. Now, I feel like this is kind of crazy that we all have to give this disclaimer of like, oh, allopathic medicine isn't bad. I'm never trying to say that, but it's not preventative care. It's emergency care. Like if I cut off my leg in a car accident, like I'm going to the hospital. But if there is something that is like you're trying to get back into alignment, you're trying to become this stronger version of yourself, I don't feel like allopathic medicine is the way to go. And I found that out the hard way because that's how I tried. I attempted that route and it didn't pan out for me. So that's my perspective, my story. And the fact that I feel like we have to give these disclaimers every time, like allopathic medicine is not giving disclaimers to the energy work and, herbalism and homeopathy, yet we have to do it opposite. Not a huge fan of that. Maybe you disagree, but that's where my feeling is from my personal experiences. So that was where I started. And it was like, as soon as I felt like these things were not working, I felt like I was not getting anywhere. There was no healing happening. There was more frustration and gaslighting than anything. All I wanted to do was feel better. And emotionally, I was like all over the place. I was unwell. I would freak out if I couldn't make it to a gym class. If I had to work late and I missed the class, like I would just be so frustrated. My emotions were like a total roller coaster. Like that would set me off so easily. And reflecting back now, it was because I saw that gym, that exercise as a way to release so much pent up energy from the day. And if I wasn't able to get there, I didn't have the tools or the knowledge or the awareness to release the frustration, to release the energy that had built up from the day in any other way. So it was like that release was being taken away from me at the times where I couldn't make it. My plan of the day like didn't go to plan basically, and I had to stay late and work on things, and then my body was just in this like tight pent up frustrated energy, and there was no release because the gym was the only release that I had available to me at the time. So there's obviously been a lot of me like reflecting back on why I acted the way I did and why I had these emotional experiences that I did. And of course, having a higher level of awareness now allows me to see all of those experiences with so much more love and graciousness for myself. But at the time, that is not how I saw it. I was just kind of a disaster, kind of a mess. But I did get to a point where I finally started to see a naturopath. That's where I was really introduced to being able to detox toxins. What is the root cause? What is this root cause concept? And really, for like a really short form of like what is root cause, because I talk about this a lot, it is actually asking why something is coming up. So if you're having digestive issues, why? It's not just because you can't digest your food. What is blocking your body? What is blocking your digestive system in this particular example from fully digesting your food? Is it toxins? Is there a leaky gut? And leaky gut is not the main root cause. Why is your gut leaky? Why are there quote unquote holes? There's energetic explanations. You could be having holes in your auric field. There could be actual holes in your stomach lining. Why is that happening? Is there more chemicals and toxins than your body can handle? And so it's actually starting to create holes in your body. And where can we actually heal up this lining? So that's where I found out how important detoxing is. And I was just talking about this with my mom recently. She's like, are we just like the crazy people that have to like always take binders all the time? And, maybe we're doing too much. And I'm like, no, if, you know, society was not trying to poison us and kill us all the time, I wouldn't have to take binders. Like you get to a point where it's like you realize regular society is trying, the people that don't necessarily have like your best interests at heart, they're sort of trying to kill us, for lack of better terms. And this whole wanting to detox your body and clean your vessel becomes a full-time job once you have this awareness. Now, you don't need to have this thought process of this is a full-time job or this is, so much effort, so much work. We can really use this to our advantage to empower us to say, well, I get to do this because I have this awareness and I choose to have a clean physical vessel because I want to be a clear channel for my soul, for my higher self, for the collective, for higher consciousness. You don't have to do this. But now that I have the awareness, like there's no going back. But people can also see it as, oh my God, there's so many toxins in the world. And then you end up in this victim mode and now you're not serving yourself or anyone else. So that's a different rabbit hole that I don't want to go down today. So, okay, let's pull it back into where I was at with health challenges. So I start understanding the power of detox, the power of finding the root cause. What is really causing this stress in your systems? And not just looking at the symptoms at face value. You might be feeling a symptom in one spot, but the root is actually somewhere else. And I bring this in with energy work too, and with the chakras, and there's really a root chakra, not the actual root chakra, but like the root cause chakra. So like if you're feeling a headache, maybe it's not necessarily your crown or your third eye, but really it's like an imbalance in your root and you don't feel safety. And so now there's like some imbalance going on in your head. Same thing with digestive issues. Maybe it's not necessarily your stomach or your digestion that's off, but maybe there is so many chemicals and toxins and bacteria and parasites and heavy metals in your body that your digestive process is so struggling, or your liver is just really struggling because, well, if you acted like me in college and you were drinking copious amounts of alcohol, then your liver is like, hi, could you please help? Because you really like stressed me out for 4 years and then never detoxed. So, the root cause perspective is looking at why this is happening and then healing the root so that your symptoms that you're feeling, that because if you're just going after symptoms, you're just going after band-aids, you're playing whack-a-mole. We don't want to play whack-a-mole. We want to get to the root. If you are watering a tree, you don't water the leaves, you water the root, because that, even though you can't see it underneath the ground, is where all that strength comes from. So that was a super important part for me to realize and understand. And I experienced a lot of healing myself with that. So I got to a place where that gave me a lot of healing in my body and I felt so much better. But then I got to a spot where I was like, but there's something more. Like that just isn't it. Like I got to this plateau of, okay, that helped, but there's more. And that's when that perspective, that helped, but there's more, has led me to all of these layers of continuous healing, of opening up my awareness to like the next thing, the next thing, the next thing, which I never really saw from the beginning. I didn't see, oh, I'm going to become some spiritual entrepreneur because I have all these digestive issues and can't breathe. When I was sitting in the parking lot at my job having a panic attack and couldn't breathe, this was not what I saw coming. Not that I am mad, but I didn't see this coming. This wasn't the plan. But it was taking step by step by step and starting to listen to myself and start to go, okay, what is my body really telling me? I have to listen. I can't just keep ignoring these feelings. So, yes, the root cause, yes, the detoxing started to help. Working with that naturopath was amazing, but then I plateaued. And then the next step, that's when the breathing issues really ramped up. It was like, yes, I felt some healing with working with the naturopath, but once the breathing issue started to really ramp up, and it was the beginning of 2020. So I was planning mine and my husband's wedding. It was 2020. I feel like I don't have to explain that. I could just say that, and you can just know what's about to happen. So our wedding was originally planned for April. Spoiler alert, we had to reschedule to July of 2020. So now at this point, I hadn't had to reschedule yet, but I was planning a wedding with all of the stressors that come with it. Now, I truly enjoyed it, but it was a little stressful. Working a job and now starting to have more and more health issues to the point where I'm working from home more because I am having more breathing issues, more panic attacks, and it starts to just kind of feel like I'm drowning. That was like the feeling. And if I look back, I would be like working in my bed, like with my computer, like just trying to stay afloat as best as possible, attempting to hang on to my life as best as I could, but feeling like I was drowning. So I got to this desperation point where I was like, I will try anything. I don't know what anything means, but I was so desperate to feel better in whatever that meant. I was like, I'll do anything. And so this woman came into my life. It was someone that my mom knew, and she was working with her in some capacity. And she was like, you know what? This person does emotional release. I feel like you should work with her. And she's like, she'll just text you or call you over the phone, and she's going to help you remotely. And I was like, great, awesome. It was the most trusting experience that I've ever had because I had very little details. I never saw this woman. I still to this day have no idea what she looks like. I knew her name. I had her phone number. We talked on the phone once. Everything else was communicated through text. But for whatever reason, and many of you may think like you're freaking nuts, like you trusted this woman. I mean, granted, my mom was working with her, so there was a level of trust from that. And then there was just something in me that said to trust this woman. And I was so desperate, but I sort of didn't care. So she eventually did a lot of emotional release on me, and I didn't know what she was doing at the time. I later found out it was like a combination of emotion code, body code, a few other different things, which, worked at the time. I feel like have been helpful tools in my life. I ended up learning them later on how to do them. I don't use them anymore as tools in my practice. I just feel like I personally have had some stronger tools that I've been able to bring in. But at the time they worked, and I felt a lot of healing from that. And I felt so much lighter as she was working on me. And it was all remote. She was, I think, in Arizona. I was in Texas. And I would literally just text her anytime. She was like, okay, anytime you feel anything, she's like, just text me and let me know. So I still had some, episodes, I would say, like breathing issue episodes happen when I was working with her. But I worked with her for about 10 months. And so she helped me really clear a lot out at the time. And that was one of my first consciously aware experiences with energy healing, with energy work and emotional release techniques. And I feel like opening that door for me was so healing, just so good for me. And I'm so happy and I'm so glad that I just threw my hands up in the air and said, show me the next place, like show me the next path for me to walk, because I didn't know what it was. Consciously, I was like, I don't even know what to do. I was ordering air purifiers left and right with money that I was like praying that would come through a bonus in a couple months that I really didn't have. but I was like, I think our apartment is full of mold, which it might have been at the time. So that could have not been super helpful. But I was ordering air filters, trying to clear out the mold. And I was just, before that, I was really just staying on the physical plane to heal these physical symptoms. And that was the first experience of me diving into this energy work, this energy healing, this entire new world that I knew was there. Like my mom had always kind of played in that a little bit and shown me that that was a path, but I had never really gone down it all that much for myself. So that was like my door to the energy work. And during this time, at this point now, the wedding has gotten rescheduled, or I'm in the middle of rescheduling and like replanning an entire wedding. It ended up being the most beautiful wedding and it ended up being exactly how it needed to be. But my ego at the time was pissed. I was unhappy. I was not a happy person, as one can imagine, as you're planning a wedding and then you end up having to reschedule the whole freaking thing. Not my idea of an ideal scenario. But apparently, my soul was like, oh, we're going to give it to her. We're really going to give it to her. And I also was now working from home full time because of 2020 things. And I had a lot more time with myself. You know, when you're in an office and you're surrounded by other people, and now that I realize how much I feel and absorb other people's energy, or can absorb, I feel a lot of other people's energy super well. You don't realize how much you're actually not with yourself or not paying attention to just yourself often when you're in that scenario or in that type of setting. So when we went to work from home full time, it was just me and my husband working in the same one-bedroom apartment. Talk about a fun experience. But I had so much more time with myself that I didn't even plan on having. And it was like I started to hear my thoughts more and more and more. And it's like as I'm healing, I'm still working on some physical healing from like a, physical detoxing, nutrition, those type of things. Also receiving all of this energy work from this woman. But there's still so much fear in me. So much fear. I would watch the news, the media, just the narratives that were being sent out. I was the crazy person that sprayed down my groceries. I'm like sad to admit it. I'm so far from that today. But that's where I was in 2020. Like that was my consciousness. Like I fully bought into this fear narrative. And I didn't realize how much fear was in my body. But I had so much more time to be with myself during this time, which was super healing. I didn't even know it was something that I needed. So during this time, I started to really think about like, what am I doing with my career? What am I doing with my life? Like, what is the next step? And I think at some point, one of my managers started to say like, okay, what's your next step? Like, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, what is the next step? What do you do? I don't know. And so that thought started to come up more and more and more. And then I realized I didn't have an answer. And not only did I not have an answer, what they were offering to me, and it was all, of course, like, IT, do you want to be a manager? Do you want to be a better leader? Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what if I don't want any of that? What do I do now? And that was like the first time that I started to realize I wanted to do something different, but I didn't know what that meant. I was like, what else do I do? I spent 4 years in college learning how to do this stuff. And I now at this point had spent, I don't know, I think 4-ish years in IT. Like that was all I knew. I was good at it. I actually rose to a pretty high leadership position very fast. I wasn't paid for it, but I did it. I was like one of those employees that did everything and didn't actually get paid what I was doing. Anyways, it was fine. It was a lesson. But that was just like my energy. Like I just liked, I've noticed I'm a natural leader. I don't lead by pushing. I just lead by embodying, and people rise up and follow what I'm doing. And I love to empower people. That's just a love of mine. Like I enjoy helping to build people up, which worked in a way that created an amazing work environment. But when you're not necessarily rewarded for that type of work, you start to lose passion for it. When you're the only one that feels like you're building yourself and the whole, team around you, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, that's a good job. Great work. And it's like there's no reward. There's nothing that's really driving it except yourself, I felt like there was just a plateau of enjoyment. I was pretty young when I ended up running a team at my corporate job. We gave I was on a team that ended up doing some really, really new development. We were brand new, and it was honestly a bunch of young women. It was the most fun team. Truly, I had there was this one group, this one team that I had. We had the most fun. It was a bunch of women my age. There was some other people involved as well, but we ended up giving presentations to the company. We ended up using new technology. We were at the forefront of everything. Like that to me was fun. I had so much fun during those times. But at some point, I had to realize that that wasn't going to last forever. And I was getting to a point where that team, that perspective that we had before, like that group was starting to crumble, and not in a bad way. It was just people started to go off in their own directions. And that was the first experience for me that I was like consciously aware of this one, not everything lasts forever. When you're in the moment, you're in the moment. And that moment is there for a reason and it's not forever. So having that experience of what's happening now is not a guarantee for the rest of your life. And what's happening now is the present moment. So be present to it because it's going to leave. And it's not bad when it leaves. But that was a really good lesson in me learning to be present and enjoy what was there because there was something that just told me this isn't going to be forever. And it wasn't. And I had to start to get okay with when I started to realize in 2020, I was like, okay, what do I want to do with my life? I'm not super thrilled and happy with continuing to be in IT, but like, I don't have another skill set. What else do I do? I had to realize it's okay to choose to pivot, to change your entire career, to change your entire life and not do what you did, what you learned to do in college. There were so many people around me in college that changed majors like 50 times or whatever. And I was that person that was like, no, even if I hate this, I'm not going to change majors. I'm not going to make any changes to my plan. And I was like so set. I'm like, no, I'm going to be the person that chose this at the beginning and I'm going to stick with it till the end. And I was very steadfast in that. And it was weird to go 4 years later and get to a point where I was like, not only do I not want to be in IT anymore, I don't even know what I want to do. And I think my generation is breaking that stigma and that mentality of having to do the same job for 30 years. I think if you want to do that and you have success with that and you have true joy and love and passion for that, amazing. But if you don't have to stick in that and stay in that and be miserable. There are other choices, there are other options, there are ways to learn new things, to do new things that do bring you joy. Because my job in IT did bring me joy to a point. And then I got to a point where it did not bring me joy. And the crazy part is looking back, when we went home and started working from home full time in 2020, I didn't realize that not only was that going to be my last time working in the office full time, but that was going to be my last time in the office ever. Because I ended up working for that company for another 3 years. And then as soon as they sent everyone back to the office full time is when I left. And it's crazy to think because that was when I was having all those thoughts about like, I want to do something else. Like, what is my next step? And that being sent home, being sent away from the office, like that was my goodbye from the office, which was so crazy to think about. It wasn't a like total goodbye from the job, but it was like the first level of goodbye, which is kind of weird to think about. So there was a point where I started to realize as I started to experience more and more healing in my own body with all of the tools that I was finding, that I was like, I started working with a group of women in the early 2021. And I had experienced so much healing. I was feeling so much better. But I was growing more and more frustrated in my job. And it was becoming more and more apparent to the point where I was working with these women and they literally said, you need to find a new job. Like it was showing up to them in my health. And they They did some muscle testing for like emotional things as well. And I just remember this person saying, like, I'm not telling you to leave your job, but it's showing up in my testing. It's showing up in my testing for your health that you're frustrated with your job. And I knew it. Like, I totally knew it. At this time, I was also starting to dive into astrology, which was super new to me. My mom bought me a astrology reading for my birthday that year. I signed up to learn astrology from someone and go into a class. I started to become more and more aware of the fact that I could actually shift and change my career, my job, how I was showing up in the world, that those things had never popped into my head before. That was never a consideration. And so I was reading the book by Sahara Rose, Discover Your Dharma. So I was like really diving into like, what is this topic of purpose? And then it was being connected by these other people saying, hey, the fact that you feel like you're not living your purpose, you're so frustrated with your job, is actually showing up in your body, in your health. And that was like the first example that I ever had of how my life and how I was living my life was actually impacting my body and impacting my health. And when she told it to me, it wasn't a surprise. I was like, yeah, I know. She's like, well, you got to do something about it because it's actually affecting you. And the work that they were doing resonated with me so well. They were really doing a lot of blood work, but from a root cause perspective, and then helping all of these women heal in this group setting. And something about being in that group, I was like, I'm going to do what they do. I don't know what it was because I had gone to so many people before this to heal my body and heal my health challenges, but it was something about that group where I was like, I'm going to do what these women do. And so I signed up for one of the certifications. It's called the Nutritional Therapy Practitioner Certification. So I became an NTP soon after that. And that was the first certification that really sent me down this role. It sent me down this path of I'm going to help other people and I'm going to help them heal their health challenges. That was the first certification, this first program that I did that really sent me down this path that I didn't even see coming. So I start with a nutritional therapy practitioner certification, which is really all about foundations, using food as medicine. And it was a great training and program. It was very long, but it was a great way for me to build foundations of things that I kind of already knew, but to really strengthen that knowledge of drainage pathways, how important that was, and the quality of food over, necessarily counting macros, because I did that. But what I felt like it was missing was the energy portion. So I'm still doing energy work and then found another energetic training, a practitioner training certification, and started to dive deeper into that. And it was like this snowball effect. It was like started with NTP, it's called Mind, Body, Spirit Release. I became an MBSR practitioner, went from level 1, 2, 3, like all the way up as fast as I could. And then, so now at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm like healing. I'm like starting to learn all this stuff myself. Mind you, I'm still in corporate and doing all these certifications, after hours. And it was like this snowball effect of healing myself and learning all these new things and being lit up by all of these new trainings, these new certifications that I didn't even know about. And it was like as soon as I would finish one, I would find the next thing and find the next thing and find the next thing. And that just created this passion of wanting to help people, because as soon as I would run even just like practice sessions with people or practice sessions on myself, I could feel the healing power that they had. And that's why I always do things that I've already experienced myself. I have a very hard time just like signing up for something, which I don't even think I've done ever, if I haven't experienced the power in it myself. So the only reason I've done any of this is because I received it as a client or as a patient first. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this is powerful. Like I need to bring this to other people was always the thought. So this really gets into how I created my business and why I created my business. So I'm going to save that for the next episode. This is kind of surreal. I said at the beginning, I started this as a mic check. I'm not even kidding. I seriously was like, let me just like pull up this QuickTime Player, and I've been like trying to play with like how to record this podcast, and like I want it to be very real and raw but high quality. And so I was like, I don't know, let's just like see how this sounds. And it just felt so flowy that I recorded a whole podcast episode. So here's episode 1. Wow. Okay. Crazy, excited, super grateful. Like I'm just excited for this. This is there's so much that's been like in my head and wanting to get out, and so many experiences and lessons that I have been wanting to share with you all that have just been like stifled. And I feel like my throat chakra is just like ready to release. I seriously already have so many episode notes already written. So I'm going to kind of pause the story here, and next episode is going to be all about how I built my business, why I built it in the way I did. Not even like I knew what I was doing at the beginning. Let's just throw that one out there. But I feel like where I'm leaving off about like certification gathering, for lack of a better term, is like a really great place to pick up next time. And we're going to talk all about business and how it really plays a role into even more continuous healing. But I wanted to start off with my origination story of how the heck I got here, what really started this evolution for me, what started this journey for me. And for me, it has been my health challenges. For other people, they start with a business or they start with a more spiritual entrance into this world. And for me, I like to see it as like I was starting at the root chakra and I've gone all the way up to the crown. I've really like moved through the body and gone from root to crown. And that's been my journey, my experience. And at the time, I don't think I saw it as a gift. In fact, I was incredibly frustrated with the gaslighting I received and just the frustration, the body sensations, the symptoms, the feeling like I didn't know what was going on, the continuous spirals. And now looking back and reflecting, I couldn't be more grateful for the experience, because if I didn't have that, one, I would not be able to be the health coach and the practitioner that I am today, because I have so much more compassion for people that are going through anything, even if it's similar or not. Because when you feel like you don't have your health, it's hard to live life at all. And I get that because I've been the person that worked from home, being on meetings with my camera off and just trying to exist in the world and not letting anyone know how much I was really struggling. I was that person. So I fully understand and know if that's you, what you're going through. But I also know that that's not the only place you have to be in. There is healing, there is opportunity on the other side. And that's why I feel like my experience and my journey is so important to share, to give you a new perspective if you feel like you're stuck in this spot. Because I went through it. I was there. I've had all these thoughts, the fears, the imposter syndrome, the frustration, the feeling like it's never going to end, the feeling like you're just stuck in this spot, the feeling of what is next because I can't see forward. So we're going to dive into so much more in this podcast. And everything that I talk about is really to show you and to get you to this point, to create your own inner glow so that the reflection that you get from people is, oh my gosh, you're glowing. Because that feeling is so unmatched. That feeling is the best feeling in the world. And I'm so excited that that's been the inspiration for this podcast and for everything that I'm about to share going forward. So I'm so excited for you all to listen to more. Oh my gosh, this is so surreal. I'm so excited. Get ready for more Oh My Gosh, You're Glowing podcast episodes by your host, Lindsey Walker. I plan on having this on all places, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. There will be a video version of it. So if you're watching, make sure to like, subscribe, follow, rate, give me your feedback. I love to hear it all. And you can also find me on Instagram at I am Lindsey Walker, and you can find my business at Soul Fam Wellness. I cannot wait for the next episode, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.